almost dark at the beginning of this meeting. As we start another long slog of the winter months, I would ask you all to rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Maybe.
ERL irrevocable substance sales. 12, 43 feet of same.
Applicant waive the reading. We have a motion to accept the resolution as written.
I make a motion.
Second. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
One question I have, do you have the maps to be signed, or do I need to put them in?
I think we would need Tony for that. I don't know.
We do not have the location for David design.
Okay. I will
So
get
we need
it. Thank you.
Number one, site plan review, Gables of West Hampton, formerly WH Equity Group LLC, Mr. Hume.
Good evening for the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road. Just a couple of things before we get to the main topic. We had some discussion last time about the temporary septic approval that we're on the verge of getting. I'm working on getting a covenant recorded, which should free that up. And as soon as that's recorded, we should have that approval. Just so that everybody understands that this temporary septic is a component of the full system. It's not some temporary thing that comes on the site and then is removed when the fully approved system is installed. It is in fact a part of the fully proposed septic system. So as we move forward with the health department towards full approval, it will just be adding to that. We won't be. It's not just something that shows up for a little while, and it will be part of the permanent installation. Another question that had come up was we were talking about the board giving the building inspector some discretion as to our ability to start doing some of the foundations. And one of the questions that was raised was, why don't you do the other infrastructure first and then do the foundations later? It's my understanding that the foundations are located and installed, and then everything else that goes on the site is built in reference to those locations. So I guess as a matter of construction practice, that's the way the contractor here proposes to move forward on that project. And on the question about the phasing, as I think we submitted a phasing plan, we're looking to build out from west to east. So the western part will be, except for the temporary septic, which will go in the northeast corner of the property. The first foundations that we build will be built starting on the west side of the property. And we were hoping, as I discussed last time, to tie, when we finally determine the parking fee, what the parking fee is, park fee, not parking fee, different fee, a lot more money. Well, maybe count the parking lots, but anyway, our goal would be to make periodic payments towards that, but our goal would be that the park fee would be paid in full by the time we got the CO for the 30th of the 45 units. And we could, I don't know if we want to do it per unit, but per group of units, I guess there could be a payment as the CO is issued. But we recognize that you probably want to get paid in full long before the final throes of this project. And so that's something that we would propose for your consideration, and see if that makes sense. And then lastly, maybe more importantly, we submitted in the form of a landscape plan what we believe to be the recreational area that we're providing on the site. And we previously submitted a spreadsheet which indicates what the park fee would be based on our appraisal in the event that you agreed with us that the square footage of recreation areas that we were providing was did in fact meet the requirements of the code. We have our engineer here tonight who maybe he can step you through the landscape plan as it pertains to that recreation area?
Well,
Ryan?
Jim, before you hand it off, I just, on the appraisal,
Yes,
uh, and did not know Tony wasn't gonna be here. I was gonna try and, I was hoping he'd be here. And I don't know if the ship's already sailed, but one of the thoughts that did come to mind was, the possibility of the village, hiring its own appraiser, not to do a reappraisal, not to revisit what was already done, but just to give the appraisal that you had prepared a look. Just,
Mhm.
just to generally make sure the methodology made sense, that the numbers were relatively close, not to redo the whole thing all over again. So that was a thought that did come to mind. I was gonna,
I think that's definitely a Tony question. I
that's
mean,
definitely a
He
Tony
did
question.
comment last time that he didn't
And
see a
it
reason
came to me
to,
afterwards. All
yeah.
my best stuff comes after the fact.
he did not
Um,
see a reason to seek a different appraiser.
So I just wanted to
appraisal, but-
raise that as, something that I will, he may say, listen, we should have already covered that. We should have already covered that, in which case we'll move on, but
Okay.
that was a thought I had.
And I don't think that will delay.
No, I
Any of
think
these other,
I think it would be a relatively
issues.
brief, affair, so to speak. With regard to the recreational, I'll let your consultant make his presentation, and I guess we'll discuss it afterwards.
Sure.
Brian Grogan with PW Grosser. I know it's on the plans in front of you. Basically, what we did is we formalized some of the walking trails that we kind of basically proposed in those recreation areas. Primarily it's basically on our side of the Montauk Highway side, kind of connecting our trellises that are out there that kind of dead end at the end of those walkways between those groups of 4 units. That will help kind of create, in essence, an overall loop within the development. And then there's also a piece going up towards the northeast corner, kind of back up around and behind the STP area that's, again, some open space that we had in the landscape plan, envisioned more for, whether it's, walking, dog walking, something like that, gets you an area to kind of get out and get up and around that corner. And then obviously we had the one piece along Old Riverhead Road that had those other trees that we kind of avoided in that area. We're largely proposing to just remain as is, potentially some minor improvements with landscape. But other than that, it's in essence, a natural area.
But there is an ability on the plan to access that.
Correct.
Called lock trees.
Yeah, I think that was the name. They were.
I referred to them as those great trees last time.
Larry's in charge of the trees.
Yeah, we like those trees.
I like those trees. I guess my question, without passing judgment one way or the other, is what did the code contemplate by recreational? I mean, what did it mean? What was it designed to provide for? And I guess I'm just having trouble wrapping my mind around having a 10, 15-foot wide path being something that was contemplated by that. Now, I might be wrong. I might be wrong. Just saying.
There's a specific call out in the code for such a thing.
I understand. I just,
Yeah,
I'm thinking more like a field, like or a tennis court or something. along
Again, no,
those
I
lines.
understand that, and I believe, and I think Brad's looking it up, but I believe the code does allow for, and on one of the other projects, like part of the alleyways would count as quote unquote recreation area, as in essence a walking trail or a walking path. It's not just limited to, yes, you're correct. In a more traditional sense, an open field for passive recreation or a dedicated
I'm
tennis
just more of
court.
a common sense, what the average person would think as recreation.
Again, correct.
know.
But again, this does provide a walking trail. It is kind of, again, does provide a loop, especially on the southern portion of the property. So that you could have like in essence, a walking loop that would bring you back around. And we only accounted for the area that's in that landscape area, not necessarily the sidewalk path that kind of helps complete the loop within the development.
Tell me what path is gonna be. How is?
We were proposing it to be, I think, a wood chip based kind of path, a little more, I'll say, natural looking, rather than like a paver stone or something like that. Again, that's something that if the board saw fit that it needed to be something different, it could be. But this way, it's not just I'll say a grass strip that you're walking through grass. It's kind of a more defined path.
Well, wood chips require at least yearly maintenance, maybe more often than that. I had another question. It seems to be a little square.
There were some benches that we added, I think more just for, for some seating areas, and then that's, it was,
No, that makes sense if what you're doing.
yeah,
is
that's
the
what we were
thing.
doing, is we were basically doing that. We, placed some benches in some, I'll say, more strategic locations. Maybe there was some more landscaping or a midpoint between two spots. Um,
I think as the board considers it, should provide some details.
Okay.
One, cross section, what we're proposing, details of what the bench is. uh, Maybe a blow up of one end of those where it goes down to the trestle, because I don't really see passing that sidewalk past the path, which looks like that was done, which you just walk into a trestle. There's no gate there, so.
Well, correct, and that, yeah, those trellises were not meant to connect, I'll say, all the way to Montauk Highway.
Yeah,
They were kind of like a terminus point for internal, but yeah, we can get you a little bit more of a blow up on that.
it just makes no sense that they ended the path because, it takes you out to the path. Yeah. Just while you're up there, I'd like to ask you about the phasing because what you seem to show now is the eastern end is phase one and this temporary sanitary system. But I think the way we've structured it before, the phase one included.
It does. No, so phase one, so the phasing plan, phase one is actually on the, I'll say, on both sides. It's the western edge and the eastern
Yeah.
edge. So the western side is where all the development would actually be. So it's the clubhouse building as well as 8 of the units. On the eastern end, because in order to support that, we need to also build the temp septic as well as the STP, and that's on the eastern end of the project.
As far as completing, be complete with the plan before you start the second phase?
We would be building the second phase, and and that phase would not get a CO until that plant is completed.
All right, to me, that kind of puts the finishing a plant in phase two, and I think that needs to be clarified, which is fine.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, we
needs-
can look at the timing of that, but the intention was, and again, as Jim mentioned, that the temporary, I'll say, the temp septic system utilizes the same collection system
Yeah, I
as
see
the
that.
final design. It uses the same pump station. All that we're adding was a septic tank prior to going to the same leaching fields. So what will end up happening is the commencement of that STP would start in phase one. And yes, it would likely finish in phase two, just given the timeframes, because it's gonna be about 9 months-ish to a year to get that fully completed. But we'll have health department approval, which would typically allow us to start building all the other units. We just can't occupy anything until that treatment plant is fully completed and signed off.
On the phasing plan, it also looks like you're doing all the paving, the curb and the paving for the main road, and parking areas for all the individual lots, at least south. Maybe not in the north, if I have the.
Yeah, I'll look at it again, Ron. I think we were, again, part of that is probably just due to placement of utilities. So like, we're getting sewer in, getting water in, get electric in, all of those things are probably gonna come in one shot from the utility companies, get it in, and then get that, I'll say, the base asphalt in. And then we'll go from there.
What I want to have it right on the phasing, because it'll have to do also with, when we put up a bond.
Okay,
When things get finished, when we maybe can relax certain phases out of it
okay,
as we complete. I assume the bond for the sewer plant is with the health department, not
Correct.
with the village. The other thing is, like phase one, you're showing a lot of the area where there's eventually gonna be units is vacant. And, that'll have to be, as part of the SWIP, that needs to be grassed over and, stabilized, so it does. So I think the phasing needs to be articulated that way. I think the
Okay.
work, it just, I think we need to revise the phasing plan, because it was a little different than what was in the SWIP.
Okay, we can update it.
You look like, you had to look like you had something to say.
Oh, I would follow up with the recreation areas, so the special exception for the multi-family dwellings, there's 5 examples of recreation areas. First, parks and playgrounds, then to community gardens, squares and commons. Community greens, excuse me, squares and commons, community gardens, and then this path would be bikeways, greenways, trails, a linear feature consisting of a minimum of 5 foot wide paved or hard packed surface within a corridor space that can vary in length and width, but should not be narrower than 20 feet wide. Regular access points from public rights of way should be provided. And then the last one was the alleys, which Brian alluded to, but this site plan doesn't have alleys in their design.
All right, so just that one part that stuck out was the regular access points from the public space.
Public space interior, and I don't think they mean the.
That's what I was a little worried about. That's what I was trying to figure out what that meant.
And in fact, I think that's what is shown in the plan.
Communal space, like a communal access.
If you don't ask the question, you don't know the answer. Anything?
The sooner the better. I'd like to get rid of that dirt.
Next question.
I'm waiting for the Kona winds to come blow the sand, blow the dirt
We're
across.
looking for you
It's
to
sand
give
dunes on the high school.
the building inspector some discretion to start reviewing foundation plans and perhaps allowing us to start building some foundations.
I know that Tony had some concerns along those lines, and I'm loath to jump into this at this point without council present, because he did have some concerns along those lines. Unfortunately, and I forgot to tell everybody this at the beginning, there is no second meeting this month. We only have one in December. Deadline for everything in December meetings, December 4th, so you know.
Is there any way we can have some consultation with council between now and the
I would
December meeting?
never dissuade you from having consultations with anybody, to move anything forward as long as it's productive.
Right.
Certainly, given that we do not have the second meeting, there's a certain looseness to our normal.
I guess my concern is if I speak to council and he's more satisfied, how do we get you guys to?
Depends to his level, I guess it depends on his level of satisfaction.
True.
So,
I mean, if he can communicate to you, is there a way to communicate to Brad that we can?
well, since it's since this is a site plan and it's a public hearing, again, I'd have to defer to Tony as to what we would be able to do informally versus what needs to be done formally.
Right, well,
Wasn't, I did not realize he was not gonna be here tonight, so it's.
Brad, how do you feel about it?
I think we need some form of site plan to issue foundation permits. I mean, it's, the clearing and stabilization and SWIP controls are one thing. But foundation, I don't want to be sitting looking at foundations for several months either. I think there should be a focus on getting a phase 1 approval, but then does the park fee, does that have to be put to bed before that's sorted out? Or is that something that you're?
I don't think the park fee I don't think the park fee, I mean, I guess it's just as long as what's proposed in terms of the path and all the rest of that isn't not going to change, at least in any substantial way. Really all I think we're concerned about at this point is that the site plan doesn't change. That it generally stays the way that it is. The park fee is gonna be what it is, that, whatever. And we, as for how it gets paid in what way, that's a technical issue as far as I'm concerned.
Well, what do you need from us to get you to the place where you can give a level of approval that the building inspector would be?
I would definitely need Tony to lay hands on it and say, yeah.
We're gonna talk about this.
I think you're gonna have to talk to Tony, and then depending on how he feels,
Health department approval.
Yeah.
should be one. I mean, if it's a phase one, we should at least get that. I also got to route it to the county for the DPW, so, like, have we done that
Did.
239 already?
Yeah, we did that. I'm pretty sure we got something back, but I don't think it was anything crazy.
I would maybe get on the phone with Tony tomorrow and Monday and just say, you know, let's get a list together. And see what he says about what we can do.
So since, I mean, other than some technical details that Brian is gonna provide for, Ron's comments, so there's no real submission that we need to make in order for us to be before you, first meeting.
Well, you can come and, yeah, I mean, obviously you can come and discuss what we already have. I mean,
So I just wanna make sure that we're gonna be on the calendar. that-
You'll be on here.
Okay.
This,
What's the story with the recreational area on the eastern portion? Over the S&P, I thought we took that out.
Well, we worked around that area and then there's like the real eastern portion, which is where the abuts Old Riverhead Road. And that's that area where the lopped trees are that we left as natural. That we're requesting to be included in as.
Last meeting.
Well, as long as the recreational path went in there, doesn't go in very far. Suppose they could extend it, I mean, we know it's there. So would be to extend the path and goes in a little bit. I think they leave that to the board's.
I think the discussion at the time was that obviously you didn't commit to anything, but that in return for us agreeing to preserve that part of the site, that we would get some consideration.
I think it makes it, I agree if it was sort of like in a feedback loop here, because like, you know, we're trying to preserve it.
Right.
But if we go in there and disturb it,
It's not
then it's not being protected, so we kind of defeating
And
the
so there
whole
is some
purpose, so I.
access to that area.
Well, you know, one thing, if we want to make sure those trees are tagged where we know which ones are the lopped trees versus the ones that you guys could bulldoze.
We marked those.
You marked,
We
okay.
marked them before they did any
I
clearing.
thought, well, I saw that tape going across.
Yeah, no, we went through that area of the ones
Oh,
that
okay.
we were.
Because there's, you know, there are other flora and fauna that you might have the need to remove. It's the whole site, it's not a landmark. I mean, we're just concerned with those five
No, it's
trees.
those 5 or 6 trees that
Yeah.
were in a row that were pretty distinct in what they looked like.
Right, yeah.
But again, the rest of it was kind of we have no, I'll say, there's nothing for us to do in that part of the area anyway.
But if we left that more or less undisturbed, that actually provides a buffer to County Road 31 to a degree as well.
Correct.
And yeah, I'm okay with that, I guess.
Well, we'll see you,
Yeah, just see what Tony, I mean, listen,
Yeah, and I'll
I'm
give
all in
Tony a call.
favor of getting some of this stuff moving,
Yes.
as long as he says it's
Yeah.
okay.
exactly.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. We'll see you on December, whatever it is. 14th, thank you.
Jim, before you go, I think I requested it before, give us some bond estimates for this stuff. For the project.
That would, I guess, be part of the phasing plan, so.
Yeah, it should be, and I think that's important before we go ahead. When we go ahead, we may wanna get some bonds.
Okay, thank you. I think the speakers need a little more adjustment. That Ron sounds like a disembodied voice from above. So we like.
Yeah.
It's like the announcer at Yankee Stadium. How about it? Number 2, Landmark Mill LLC, the Starbucks proposal at 193 and 195 Mill Road.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Philip Butler with the law firm Farrell Fritz, 100 Motor Parkway in Hopog. I have some additional materials to hand up to the board that I'll be referring to. Can I hand those up directly?
Normally, we don't accept without 10 days in advance notice. we'll do it, because we're not gonna have another meeting in the end of the month. Normally, we want 10 days in advance.
I appreciate it. I'll explain this in further detail, but they're not appreciably different than what you've already seen, but there has been an adjustment made based on prior comments from the board, so.
Is it different from what we have in our hands now?
We received an email, I received an email from the board secretary November 6th, which I'm assuming was what.
Then you may have the updated, so,
This-
hand this up anyway, and if there's a distinction, I'll point it
Well,
out.
it's refers to an alternative site plan, last revised November 3rd. Traffic is parking assessment. This is the email from your, I'm not sure if it's from your office or from somebody else. November 3rd revised as well. Building concept plan dated October 31. Building concept exterior is October 31. So I don't know
And
if
you have- you have-
that's all that.
Yes. So as the board already knows, I know this has been workshopped a few times. So it's an as-of-right use. We're not seeking any zoning relief. I'm cutting to the issues that I know have been previously raised. There was prior discussion, I believe, about the orientation of the main entrance to the cafe. The board and I believe the code require that it be oriented toward Mill Road. So that change has been implemented, and as you'll see on the newest version of the plans, the front entryway is now on Mill Road. There is also now another side entrance that is closer to the rear parking lot, so that there's easier access to the interior. If the board is curious as to why they didn't put a secondary entrance on the parking lot, it's because of the interior layout of the building. They need a back of house, and putting the second entryway would basically cut the back of house in two. It's not workable for the floor plan. You have a copy of the floor plan in your materials. You also have copies of the updated elevations. The one thing we have not provided to the board is updated renderings. We can provide those if the board wants to see them, but you have the prior renderings which show the original concept, showing the main entrance on the parking lot. As I'm sure you can appreciate, the building's going to look the same, only turned around, so the main entrance is now going to be on Mill Road. So you still know what the building's gonna look like. You're just seeing parking lot in the foreground instead of the traffic circle. Another issue that I believe was raised was about the roof height and the dormers. We took another look at that. The roof height is going to be lowered 1.5 feet from the prior proposal. However, the dormers and the roof ridge can't be changed because of the need to put the mechanicals inside the roof. Ideally, you don't want a flat roof. It doesn't really fit with the kind of residential feel around the traffic circle. So we're doing the peaked roof. The dormers are part of that for the need for the additional height. But as I mentioned, the ridge line is coming down 1.5 feet. We also don't want to put the mechanicals on the ground because this is a relatively small site. So that would eat up area that's being put towards outdoor seating and parking. So that's really the material changes from the last version of this plan you saw. So we're happy to respond to any questions the board has. I'm joined tonight by Jordan Leibowitz, who represents the applicant, and Zach Chaplin from Stonefields.
So effective.
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, and Chuck Deese, who's the project architect.
So effectively, what we've done is reoriented the building facing the traffic circle.
Really just moved the entrance. That's pretty
Yeah,
much
I
it.
mean, just in terms of the focus of the building, it's been spun 180 degrees.
Right.
I mean, we had discussed, I mean, appreciate what we're saying in terms of the functionality. I mean, we had discussed, hopefully, I thought the idea of the through and through was actually a really attractive look.
And I specifically raised that with the
Yeah.
client, and they just said the way that they lay out the interiors, they need a back of house that has a certain amount of space without being
But
cut off.
This, you know, the back of the building clearly looks like the back of the building. And it's in view of, you know, town hall. What could you do to dress that up, maybe even glass panels to make it look like? Because the discussion that we had was in just, you know, as he had mentioned, that it would look like you know, the front would look like the back, even though you didn't have operational doors.
I don't think we're opposed to that. I mean, I know there are certain options this board does not want to see, but as you can see from the elevations, there's still something of a vestibule back there, so it isn't just a flat plane. But in terms of what we can add as like a faux door or a faux entrance,
Well,
Yep.
it's, when my comment is on the back of the building, you know, clearly this is looks like the back of a building.
Mhm.
What can you do in here to dress this up? It's 6 panels, right, to dress this up a little bit, and maybe even change the window sizes.
Well, I don't think we're gonna make full-size windows
Well, no,
because you'll
you
be
know, you
looking into the
understand my
kitchen.
point,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. I'll actually let
just
Chuck
wanted-
speak to that.
For the record, this looks like the back of a building, and I think you need to do something to dress this up a little bit.
Understood. Chuck Dietz, managing member of the Dietz Partnership LLC, architects. We took your comments to heart, and I know why we changed the orientation, both because of the proximity to the school and where you thought a lot of the pedestrian traffic was going to come from, and we aligned that along the Circle and Mill Road. And as we mentioned, we had not been able to show you any of our floor plans with the test fits that Starbucks did, which you now have. And the other big kind of bad thing we proposed when we had the facade on the Mill Road the last time is we gave you all the windows, full size, but you can't see into, you're not gonna be able to see into them because it's back of house, bathrooms, so we had put film on it. The board, obviously in unison and almost at the same time, told me to go look at the Ace Hardware down the street, which I did. Took pictures of it. We understood your concern. That definitely looks like the back of house on that main street. So in order to capture some semblance, all the materials, everything's identical, except we don't have the full height glass. So what we did do is put smaller windows up high that would be above where they're gonna put equipment, where their back of house, stuff is. So you still have a look. We don't have the door there. If we were to put faux panels in there, what would the board like to see if you don't want to see graphics or some type of film on the windows like we have over at the Ace Hardware, which was very detrimental to the board?
Well, I see where Rocco's going with this, and you know, it's, again, so now we're a rock and hard place time. It's like, you know, the building has to be functional at the same
Right.
time as we want it to look nice. So how do we square that circle?
Well, that's what we
Hard to
did.
find.
We worked hard with Starbucks and their design team, and how it all starts when you lay out a Starbucks, and I've done a lot of Starbucks. And what happens is when they determine where their main entrance is gonna be, they set that counter. And on their plan, it says engine, and it's called the engine for a reason. That's sized per the size of the store, the type of sales and the amount of product they wanna sell at this location, and that determines how big that counter has to be. So those are the first two things that happen. Where's the entrance gonna be or entrances? And then how does that correlate to the engine or the service counter? Everything else flows after that.
I mean, again, like Rocco said, it's gonna be visible from Village Hall. Back of the building anyways. The only other buildings that might be visible from would be some of the properties on School Street back there, so. I mean, if we can't do anything with the back of the building, maybe we can enhance landscaping, have some really mature landscaping, trees that are a fairly decent size already.
It's
So,
not a bad idea.
so we can
And de-
just mask the back of the
And
building.
depending on what the ordinance allows, and I know we touched on it briefly for the outdoor seating in the patio, we are showing that. So if we can make it work with the seasonal and landscaping, that would be a nice area to have some
You have to have
seating.
some decent, not even, really nice spec trees, let's put it that way. That
Yeah.
would kind of really just kind of, that are already fairly grown.
Yeah,
Uh,
but Starbucks is not opposed to having the outdoor seating there. They're encouraging it. They're showing it on their plan. They'd
which I
love to
think the
see it.
landscaping around that outdoor seating area would be
Yeah,
helpful.
so I think our engineer could work with you on that for sure.
I don't know if there's enough room.
That's not what here. That's the wrong one. It's not here.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah, so, what, the thing is, we have what's that? Just back off. The preliminary floor plan seems to show seats on the back of the building up against it, but the patio is on the site plan.
Yeah,
there is- there
is also the patio, but also there would be, I mean, showing seating up against the back building, but there's also.
correct.
Right.
You know, instead of us trying to redesign the back of your building, why don't you go back to the architects and ask them, what can you do with this to make it more clear?
Well, I guess my question to you would be, all the materials and everything is identical to the front, except we don't have the same size windows.
Right, but
If we
this-
put faux windows in, they can't be transparent that you could see in, and the board made it apparently clear to me and everyone, I think, not to do film, so I'm not
Well,
sure,
Nobody wants to see graphics,
correct.
right? So that's what we're talking about. We're not, a film is a film, but graphics film is what we don't wanna see.
Okay.
But clearly, for me, something needs to be done with the back of this building. Whether it's a window that's full size but dummied, that it has a presentation and it still accomplishes what you want.
Almost like a mall front where we build the dummy
Some
storefront and have
so
it
I mean,
lit.
the architectural crew should be able to do something with this.
Well, that would be us. That would be my firm working with Starbucks.
So I can understand the comment correctly. Are you concerned about the entirety of the rear facade or specifically the area
Oh.
within that faux entry?
You know something, I think this back of the building from the roof line down needs to be dressed up. So it has a better appearance. That's all I'm saying. So whether you can do windows and dummy the bottom side so that you still have your counter space, you can put your equipment, but it's not a window. You know, it still functions the way you need it, but it gives us the impression that it,
Because that really is the only thing that's missing on the back. If I look at the two elevations, that's the only difference. There's no windows and doors on the back that there are on Mill.
right.
Every other piece of material is identical, front and back.
If it wasn't visible,
Understood.
right, you probably wouldn't make an issue. Hey, you're parking in the back of a building. Nice presentation in the front. But the back is visible.
Michael?
We'll try.
So just to distill the conversation, then you're conceptually, you're okay with the site plan, but aesthetically, the back of the building, you want to see dressed up.
So you know, there's been some back and forth about the building, but I think the building looks nice. And I said it the last time.
Yes, you do.
So,
I think I think we're at the point now where, as far as the appearance of the building, we're probably tinkering with the
Yeah.
detail. At this point, I think the overall concept.
And just to expand on what our attorney mentioned, technically, yes, because we're not doing a flat roof, Starbucks requires 2 HVAC units for a standard prototype store. So we would have these hung in the attic space, so we need the height for that. And then the dormers, because you now have mechanical systems in the building, they have to have fresh air. So that's what the dormers are actually serving as a dual purpose, because they're now gonna allow the fresh air to come into that attic space by code, now that we have mechanical units sitting up there. So we're actually mandated somehow to ventilate that space, and that's what these dormers can do
Now,
for
mind
us.
you, they're just the first bump in the road here. We'll have to go to see our friends at the Architectural Review Board and
Of course.
persuade them also.
Fair
Yes,
Part of my
I don't have a problem with the.
we're not ready for the public participation yet, but we will get there.
I think the way you have it oriented, now is, you know, obviously facing the circle, looks great.
We tried to line that door with the walkway to get you to that crosswalk like you
And the
mentioned.
rear, to me, I don't mind it signaling that that's not an entrance. And I think with what we were talking about a while ago with landscaping, and being the south side of the building on a relatively cool day, it'd be a nice sunny place to sit outside, even during the winter. And it wouldn't need, you know, windows coming all the way down. I can see all the mechanical equipment we've got coming up against that south wall, in the, I guess, southwest
Yes.
end of it. I don't know, I think it looks pretty good.
The village planner would like to chime in.
I just think one thing specifically to Rocco's comments that we should all take into consideration is sometimes these buildings tend to glow at night. And that is the residential side of the building, that it might be, you know, when you drive through the intersection here at night, you go outside right now, there's nothing that's really lit. And so this is gonna be an impactful lighting on a rotary that is not lit right now. Most of these are businesses that are shut down at night. I think that having the dark side, that side to the residences on School Street might actually be a benefit, and not having those full windows. Presumably, you're gonna be open till 8 o'clock at night.
well, it's not full windows, dummies. They'll still be like,
They're just blacked out.
There's no.
Their
glazing?
windows, are the same windows as front, put on the back, but blacked out is what you're saying, Rocco.
all blinded out, some of it blinded, maybe you want some.
That you can't see through. I mean, basically, they're building walls over windows.
So we
Something
can-
to dress it up.
Yeah, but with respect to the lighting, because I understand the impact on the residential side, but we can always look at things like shielding, timers, discuss that with Starbucks.
Well, we have a full lighting code.
And the sconces are down facing, so they won't shine any real light.
But even if that the interior, if you
Yeah, that
put
would
big
glow if we were
windows,
trying to
that
do
will-
something, yes.
It will shoot out the back.
So I agree with your planner with that point.
I was actually gonna suggest that. Brad?
Just because we opened the public hearing tonight and we kind of skipped over the public presentation portion, it would be nice just to tell the public here, like, what you're actually proposing, where it is, where we started. We did have a little bit of a work session, so, but maybe you could just
Yeah, you start with the civil.
briefly summarize what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Zach Chaplin with Stonefield Engineering, civil engineer for the project. So we are proposing a 2,336 square foot Starbucks. There is no drive-through. This is right across the street from Village Hall, so obviously very visible. Looking to redevelop the site, which I think today is there's really just a residential house and driveway. So looking to redevelop that with the Starbucks. There are 16 parking spaces and 16 seats. Health Department limits us to the 16 seats on the interior of the Starbucks. In terms of the layout, what we're proposing are 2 access points. One off Mill Road, which would be a egress only, right turn only, and then one off School Street as well, which is an ingress only. And that's something that, we worked with Ron on. I think the original plan actually had 2-way traffic in the site, but talking with Ron, we made the switch to one-way circulation, so there's kind of a nice flow into the site with angled parking spaces, one way in and one way out. And I could actually bring up a board if that's helpful.
Whatever makes it easy for you.
So it might be hard to see, but essentially what I was just talking about, that access off School Street, that's where you're coming in, and then you can only leave off onto Mill Road. Aside from that, I think we spent a lot of time just thinking about, the pedestrian access points. I know that is kind of related to the architecture as well. So last iteration, we made sure that there's a connection point from the circle directly to the entrance now on Mill Road. We also last time spoke about that patio area. So we added that to the south side of the building and next to the parking spaces. And I think, we don't have it right now, but I think a big premise of this will be the landscaping. I think we're going to really do a nice job landscaping the perimeter. I think there's some areas specifically, like you just mentioned, right up against the south side of the building that we left 3 to 4 feet to put some landscaping right in front of the building before you hit the sidewalk to dress up that elevation as well. And aside from that, we're moving forward with fully engineered plans. So, the lighting will be compliant. It'll be downlit LED shielded lighting. Stormwater will all be retained on site, and obviously new utilities to the building and a septic system in the parking area.
So if that's really all we have for the board in terms of a presentation, we're happy to address any questions, or if you want to hear from the public and then we can respond.
In addition, I appreciate the landscaping right up against the back of the building. I guess my other thing was, again, more towards the School Street side.
Mhm.
That's where I was talking about the trees to really kind of break up the view from Village Hall, from School Street, frankly. As people pull in, there'll be, it'll break it up. Cause I don't think putting some bushes against the back of the building is gonna be the problem solver here. If you want to avoid, or if you don't think putting those windows is viable, then that's gonna have to be your fallback.
Yeah, as Zach mentioned, we're gonna do a pretty robust landscape plan, so we'll obviously work on that. Just noting for the record, though, it's gonna be what we consider to be a nice building, so we don't wanna necessarily hide it. And also, we don't wanna create obstructions for the drive-through coming off of, coming off of School Street.
And
so-
I'm not talking like an arbor vitae screening. I'm talking just something, a couple trees to,
Break it up.
that breaks it up so it's not, you're not looking at a wall.
Right, of course.
Basically. Well, at this point, unless anybody
Yeah.
feels otherwise, I think, Brad, we're okay with an ARB referral at this point. Do we have enough to go? Yeah, I'd like to get them earlier rather than later before we get too far afield.
This latest rendition would be, because there's been 3 renditions, I guess the board should pretty
I would
much
say
select one.
the current, and I would suggest probably you're gonna have to update the color rendering that we got in, because it doesn't really match.
Correct.
I mean, the parking doesn't even match.
Right.
Parking's
Can I
not-
make one more statement that I didn't cover in my testimony?
Sure.
We did look at the sign ordinance as per the request last time. And because we weren't sure how the board was gonna react to this revised plan, we're still showing 3 signs. By ordinance, we're allowed 2. So most likely, we're gonna eliminate the disc on the rear or the south elevation because there's no door there. So there'll be a Starbucks lettered sign on the one entrance and then the mermaid disc on the other, which we would be entitled to. So when we go forward, we would take that 3rd sign off the building.
Couple of things. I had asked for a revised traffic letter. And I reviewed it and most of it's fine. The parking is still based on the old 30. So that needs to be revised down to the 16 with respect. They should also show the traffic generation from ITE based on the 16 seats instead of just the parking spaces. And I think we've had, I think at one point we had a seating plan, but I don't know if the seating plan we've seen is for the 16 seats. So we should get that. And then just a word when you're doing your landscape plan, I believe some of the site abuts residential property and residential zoning. And that requires a special buffer, between 10 and 30 feet with a double row of arborvitae. So just so you don't miss that needs to be included.
All right, I just wanna make sure, because you're showing seating on the sidewalk area in the front of the building facing the traffic circle. Are those also more seats on the back side of the building?
I just want to clarify because this came up last. I reached out to the health department. At this moment, we're not proposing any outdoor seating because we can't. I think the patio is there for potential future
Right.
outdoor seating that
Yeah.
Starbucks would pursue.
I appreciate that. It's actually showing on the building concept, it's showing, I don't know if there's seats or not on the back side.
I think,
So you're gonna have to take that out.
yeah.
Take out the outdoor seating. I mean, you're gonna have to give us what,
What we're actually asking.
what you're actually,
That's fine.
give us the ask. Brad, you good? Brian, you good? Brittany, good? Everybody on the board, good? Also, I'm heading that way now.
Yeah, I'm good.
Heading that way.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna, unless anybody on the board has an objection, I'm gonna move that we refer this over to the ARB so they can get on the agenda and get that going. Any objection? No objection, all in favor? Aye. Now we're gonna open up to the public. Please come up, identify yourself, and tell us what you think. You have to come up. It's the way we do this.
Picture taken?
So, my name is Susan Pizzera. I live, on the flag lot off of Mill. There's 3 houses back there. And the traffic is already terrible, especially in the mornings. And I guess my question would be, well, let me first start off by saying part of the appeal and charm of West Hampton Beach is the locally owned and run businesses. And that side of the street that I live on has always been residential. I don't understand, we already have some great coffee shops here, how this could even be considered. It's going to increase traffic, number one, in a school zone. And in the mornings, getting off my flag lot, even onto Mill, it takes me a long time. I can't even imagine it with an additional coffee shop. And I guess I do not understand the sense of it. It's going to add additional traffic on Mill Road, which is already a mess. And again, we already have wonderful locally owned and run coffee shops here. So, and moving into this community, we were told actually that would not ever happen or be considered.
I think there's a lot of things that have happened in this village in the last 5 years. which
Understand
we've
that.
been
You've
on
already
relatively
added
steady,
a
so you're
million
never gonna see.
drugstores. That's not necessary. So absolutely not.
What you're saying, it is a permitted use, and, you know, we're really not in a position to say that, you know, it has to be locally owned. We can't dictate who owns it and who runs it. If Starbucks wants to do it, it's not something that we can say no to, not at least on that basis.
The appeal of this place is the boutique owned and the locally small businesses. So
We all agree, but
Yeah.
again, there's certain things, I mean, I remember when Dance came in Southampton Village, the whole world came to know about that UFO. Chet Miller went out the door. So, it's the nature of the beast. It's not it's not the West Hampton Beach of 10 or 15 years or even 5 years ago anymore. Things have changed.
True.
And it's just,
But at a certain point, you have to say, oh, we have enough coffee shops or we have enough drugstores.
one could say we have more than enough real estate stores, but guess what? They all seem to
Again,
do it just fine.
different type of business.
I appreciate that, but again, we can't dictate what businesses open. It's
Okay.
not.
So how are you going to ensure that the traffic is safer if there's an increase in traffic?
We have our engineer, we had traffic study, traffic. We made sure that the outflow is actually a right turn only onto Mill Road, so they have to go through the circle before circling back. They're not gonna be turning out left, heading down towards the school. So there are mitigations that we can do. We can't prevent traffic, but we can do things to mitigate it as best we can.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to voice my
And we appreciate it.
PAZERA.
Does anybody else want to be heard? Come on up, one at a time, please.
Marty Melzer. I own the property right next to the west of the proposed place. There is a little house adjacent to the property, and the dumpster from Starbucks is placed right in front of that piece of property. The property is zoned residential and commercial, a split zone. Where the dumpster is? That's where the house is, just to the west of that.
Not sure where else they would put it. I'm sure they're looking. I mean, it's 10 feet off the property line, so it's not a zoning issue. I mean, it will be landscaped, right? back
Yes.
there? I mean, we'll have, the dumpster will be landscaped and, but there will be a buffer, so it won't be quite as visible. That's what house? Yeah, I'm trying to scratch my head which house that is.
We don't have a
Could
landscape.
be me, 12
They didn't do it yet. We don't have a full landscape from that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the step. Let's see the
Okay,
landscape.
now,
Yes, sir.
as we know, the movie theater is under construction now, and that's gonna bring a lot of traffic to the circle. We also have by the Sunset Avenue corner, we have that new building that's gonna bring a lot of people. This is gonna be a nightmare, this circle. It'll be horrible. You're feeding traffic in from Montauk Highway up that Potunk Lane. They're coming in from Mill Road, both sides. I mean, it's gonna create a total nightmare.
And I'm not unsympathetic because I live very close to that traffic circle, so I'm gonna be dealing with it just as much as everybody else. We are doing our best. Again, we are not really empowered to say no, as long as it's a permitted use. I mean, we can work with the way it's laid out. We can try to do different things, but we can't just, as a board, sit here and say no. We don't have that
But as
authority.
far as the traffic now isn't bad, but you've got two facilities opening up that are gonna bring lots of cars.
And the movie theater's always been an issue because it never had its own parking. So it's, and if anything, as I understand it, it's gonna have less seating because they're gonna have bigger seats. So there may be less people using it
Well, it never was very crowded, but
So-
still, but still it brings
Well,
traffic.
maybe more crowded because
Brings
apparently there's gonna be a bar on the second floor, so maybe.
Well, that's good.
Um,
That's good.
which is a whole other set of issues. But I mean, also part of this is we have been trying, at least, I'm not sure we were doing it consciously, but I think it's actually turned out that we've been trying to make the traffic circle area more pedestrian friendly, more walkable, for people. So to hopefully maybe reduce the amount of vehicles that come into that area. Again, parking's limited here. I mean, probably the best parking is gonna be Village Hall for a lot of this.
For the movie theater.
Yep.
Yeah.
Down Brook.
I've done that already. More than once.
Well, when you do your studies, are you taking into consideration these two other facilities that are going to bring more traffic to the area?
Well, it takes, again, you get into an area where it's a little dicey because it's like, how far is the radius that you consider? I mean, pretty much anything has something to do with everything, so. But we rely on our village engineer to assist us with the traffic generation, to have an idea of what we're dealing with. And we've been very successful over the years. I can't, again, we can't stand on Sunrise Highway and say, stop, come no more. I mean, we're trying to manage this change as best we can.
We got a new town now. It's not what it used to be,
I know that.
and it's becoming a crowded place, which is
Sure
great.
It sure is.
But we don't want the circle to start spreading out like a sunburst.
Yeah, I get you, and it can only go so far, because I mean, it ends in residential spots, so it's a somewhat limited, you're not gonna have, it's not gonna be sprawling down to Jim's office. I mean, but the Jim might wanna have a 7-Eleven, I don't know. But again, this is hard stuff to manage this growth. I mean, it was easier for a very long time, because it was 3 full months of the year. That was it. It is, and that's, again, we're trying as best we can with the tools that we have to make, people have property rights. They have the right to develop their property and do certain things. We have to accommodate that. At the same time, balance it against what happens to the rest of the community. And
Well, you don't have room to put 2 lanes in.
Nope, that's for sure.
So what good is this gonna be? The previous person up here was talking about how crowded things are in the morning. This is gonna make it so much worse.
Listen, I don't know that this is gonna draw extra traffic into the area. I don't think it's gonna make people come off of Sunrise Highway to drive down here to get a cup of coffee. I would think most of the people going to this will be people who are coming here anyways, for one reason or another. So it's not like it's gonna be a destination on its own. At least I don't think so. Right? So again, like anything else in this village, at certain times of the year, you can't get a restaurant seat, but the rest of the year, you're fine. Certain times of the year, you don't want to leave your house in the car, but most of the year, you're fine. There are gonna be times where it's gonna be a little difficult. Hopefully not too many.
Well, I don't think this is gonna be a walking destination. It's too far. If
But
you're talking
again-
about the people parking in town and on Main Street and up Sunset, they're not gonna come out walking to this place.
Well, no, but again, like I said, I think for the most part, the people that are gonna be hitting that Starbucks, are gonna be coming in, they're gonna be grabbing their coffee, whatever it is that they wanna eat, and then they're gonna keep going to whatever their ultimate destination really was in the first place. So I don't see it adding a large volume of traffic, and maybe a couple more trips in and out in that particular area. Maybe.
Probably the kids from high school and stuff. You're gonna have the kids coming down from the high school, because it's very popular, Starbucks with the kids. So, to a degree, you're gonna have some walking from that, but also driving, because kids are driving. too.
I think this is somewhat mitigated as far as traffic, because we don't have a drive-through down at Manorville. With cars, you'll see 15 cars lined up.
You'll see them backing out of coming out of the.
We had a drive-through here, the cars technically could be going down,
But what about the 7-Eleven? Is it gonna draw traffic that was going to 7-Eleven to Starbucks now? You got a 7-Eleven on either side. got one on Sunset Avenue, you got the,
It's what the
on Mill
market
Road.
will bear. If there's a market for it, it'll stick around.
no, but I'm not, but it'll draw those customers to this place and more congestion.
Again, I appreciate your point. I think most of those cars are coming into the village anyways. They're not, you know, whether they decide to go to 7-Eleven versus Starbucks, I don't think we're adding any appreciable traffic to the area. Just more, maybe some congestion at certain points of the day.
Think we need more of a study on this?
Brian?
They've done some work on it. I looked at it. Looked at it, they just gave them some additional things to look at, but
It's a project that,
percent of the Starbucks traffic is what they call pass by, which means driving by, it's picking up coffee. In this case, you do have competition from 7-Eleven, you have competition from Hampton Coffee, which is on the
Right.
other side of the circle.
as a general proposition on a project of this size, we're usually not gonna direct a full-blown traffic study. I mean, it's just not something that we customarily do.
I don't think it will show an impact.
Spell your last name?
Melzer. Well, but the thing is that you've got the theater that's been empty for so many years. And I think we have to look to the future. And that building on the corner of Mill Road and Sunset that's coming, that's a big facility. You're going to have a lot of traffic.
It's not that big. We looked at that when it
It's
was.
4,000 feet, isn't it?
We're talking about this.
The bottom line is, we appreciate your concerns and your comments. And again, we're not limiting our comments to just what happens in the meeting. If anybody wants to submit any written submissions, anybody, your neighbors can't make it, they want to submit written submissions, they can, we'll be happy to take it. But we are studying, we have been looking at, traffic's always an issue on every application. We always look at it. It doesn't get brushed underneath.
My feeling is that this is a small area that's facing big change.
It is. You're absolutely right.
One thing you have to remember is that, the movie theater has its peak probably after 6. Starbucks doesn't do much business. In fact, there'll probably be a lot of the same people going to the movie theater. The other one is a medical office building. It probably don't open up until 9, so you're gonna miss the whole Starbucks morning rush. And a lot of it, yes, if they all had their peak at the same time, yeah, there'd be problems.
The nature of the town has changed. There are more year-round people. There'll be more people going to the theater than ever before.
But the theater won't affect what's going on at Starbucks because it's after 6.
Just bring traffic.
Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the traffic's here and it's coming no matter what we do. Can't do much about it. I mean, we can manage it. Again, and all we can do is looking at each project is how does this proposal affect the big scheme of things? And, again, one way we did it was just have the one-way through, the right turn only. It avoided people trying to make, if we allowed people to make left turns to head the other direction on Mill Road, that would be a disaster.
What is it now? You come in on Mill Road?
You come in on School, swing out to Mill.
Come in on School.
Yeah, and right turn, and right.
Come in here, it goes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, so everything that's been submitted,
Yeah.
walk through it.
Has this been changed, the one that I have?
There's been updates, what we just, yeah. So if you want to come, we'll pull the file and they'll show you exactly.
And this is the beginning of a long process, so you have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. Sir?
Hello, my name is John Schoen. I live at 12 School Street, which is right behind this proposed property. I've lived here all my life. In fact, I went to that school, I worked in that movie theater, and I worked on that helicopter. So I've been around a long time. I received the planning board application, which I can't read. It's, either the printer was running out of ink or, it was just sloppy lawyer work. I'm not sure. But all I received was a small, survey. And that's of the existing building. That's the only thing I've got. This application was put in August. I received this last week.
Well, it was submitted, for lack of a word, informally. It was on our work session agenda, so it wasn't a formal public hearing yet, so there was
Okay.
no notice required at that point. We were just trying to see if we were gonna get this off the ground before we transfer it to a public hearing. In terms of what you received, again, the full files downstairs. Come in
Okay.
anytime, take a look
That
at
I'd
it.
have to see, because I just heard about the dumpster now, and that would probably be almost outside my front door.
Like a
so-
planner said, this is a long process. They're gonna go
Yeah.
see the ARB now. We're into a time of year where we don't have as many meetings, so not probably a lot's gonna happen until after the first of the
Right.
year. So there's
Okay.
a lot of time.
So this is the first stages
It's
of
the
it.
very first stage, the very
Um,
early stages.
Yeah, because I've been at this property since 1979. I know the gentleman did say there's been a lot of changes in this town, and I get it.
Yeah.
After the pandemic, a lot of people came out here, stayed here. Our full-time population is exploded. But my concern too is noise, because obviously I hear every beep, every FU, all of it. I've been here since there was a traffic light, and this was a one-way street coming off of Six Corners. And, the traffic, I mean, a lot has happened in the town, a lot of improvements. I don't know why Starbucks, because, it's a brand name. This town has never, other than Dunkin' Donuts, has never really, McDonald's tried to get in here, they couldn't get in. A lot of people we've kept, like the gentleman said, this town has been quaint, it's been quiet, it's been, if we start letting them in now, then when will McDonald's come in? When is Burger King arriving?
Well, if they can find a piece of property
Yeah,
that hasn't
well,
been paved
that's-
over yet.
Yeah,
then good
that
luck.
too. Well, that being said, as well, there seems to be a lot of buildings outside of town that were built and they're empty. We've got 2 strip malls that seem to have a lot of empty stores. I'm just wondering why this property, and what if it doesn't do well? I mean, is there a lease? Does Starbucks come in? They lease it for 25 years or?
Whatever their ownership, management, however, that's something that we can't get involved in, frankly. But let's be fair, these large corporations are gonna go where the money is, where they
Right.
think the customer base is. So I fear that you're right. I think this is just something that's gonna start, and you're gonna see a lot more stores on Main Street that are corporate owned.
Yeah.
But again, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of this you are, that's something that's beyond our purview. We can't tell landlords who to lease to, and we can't tell people what kind of business to operate. It's just not something we can do.
So I am the Lorax, is what you're saying. I mean, I'm not opposed to, the firm wants to give me a firm offer to get me out of there and make my place a parking lot. I'm not exactly opposed to that idea, but unfortunately, that'll be the end of my residency in West Hampton. I just,
Like we said, we will do we have always done our best, especially when these properties are located. It's just a transitional yard anyway, so it's right. So there are special requirements that would be otherwise inapplicable because this property is again adjacent to a residential zone.
To the south, it's R2. To the west, it's still HC. So it's slightly different between the last two speakers.
and I'd have to dig in the files, but I think I'm still considered residential commercial.
You are zoned R2. It's fully residential.
Okay, so that got changed somewhere along the line. I mean, I've been there since 1979. I was commercial. I was dual purpose, I think, for a while.
We don't have a full landscaping plan yet, so we're not even, so like, you're looking at you would
Right,
be looking at
okay.
this in the absence of that, so let's see where it goes.
There's still more.
There's still time
to
to
come.
come. And there are going to be, every time it's on for a public hearing, the public will have an opportunity to say whatever it wants. Thank you. Does anybody else in the public want to be heard? Barry? Oh, good lord.
I wasn't planning on speaking about Starbucks tonight, but since it came up, I've been in West Hampton Beach for about 45 years, and it's changed in the last few years, and it's remarkable what's been done. At the same time, I look at the village and I see a small town which is beautiful and has local businesses, and it's just great. So planning, I look around and think, are big corporations going to come in here? Do we want that? And, what can we do about it? Maybe we don't want to do anything about it. I'm not opposed to Starbucks. I'm really here more to discuss a little bit about a question. And really what I'm asking about is that I know that there had been a provision in the code that prohibited what was referred to as fast food. And I don't know if that's been changed. If it has been, then this would be a permitted use. If it hasn't been, I don't know where this goes. 2,300 square feet is pretty big for a Starbucks. And so I also, I don't know where this property is going and where it ends up. In terms of destination, I think you'll get mostly local people here. I've incredibly seen people, and yes, it's been more younger people that do this, but I've seen them drive to Starbucks in Hampton Bays. I've seen them go to Riverhead to go to Starbucks. They go there, go to Starbucks, they come back. And so I think, we should be aware that it'll be mostly local people, but there will be some people that will come here to Starbucks as a destination. That's not a bad thing. It's just, something to really be aware of. And, my primary concern, if you will, is to think about planning in terms of where we want to go, in terms of keeping this as more of a village with more primarily local businesses, or, having it more open to having, big corporations come. Very difficult for a local business that's winds up being mostly seasonal to compete with a big corporation, because they can afford not to be open during the winter, or not have revenue or as much revenue during winter months, whereas the local businesses, have a hard time with that. And so those are my thoughts. Yes, it's Bernstein, BERNSTEIN.
I think your concerns, well taken, are better addressed towards the Board of Trustees than us.
Yes.
But I will echo what I've said over and over and over again, is zoning tends to be reactive. It's easier to cry about what you didn't do than think about what might happen and do something about it in advance.
Mhm.
So, if that is something, that would be, we have to be more forward thinking as to what might happen when we make those planning decisions. Unfortunately, I don't think that happens as often as it should. That's just me.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it. Anybody else in the public? Anybody else on the board? Good. All right, you're going to go
Wait,
see.
wait, wait.
Oh, you got more.
I just wanted to say, I forgot, I've been here since 1963. And I've seen this change, it's pretty amazing,
I agree.
pretty amazing. It's a great town.
I think pretty much anything east of the William Floyd Parkway in the last 30 or 40 years has seen a dramatic change. Okay. Pick your demarcation, it's fine. All right, so you're gonna go see the ARB. I don't know when the next time is.
December.
We did before. We'll do it again. Make a motion? All in favor? All right. You'll have to get, I don't know what they're gonna want. They're probably.
Separate board, because those
Yeah.
parts of New York State have now combined.
It's a separate board. They may want to see you more than once. They may want to see you for the initial concept, then they might want to have you come back with materials.
Yeah, they want to see material and colors.
So, but I would try to find out from them in advance as best you can what.
Yeah, usually the application tells you what they want. I'm familiar. Okay.
Gentlemen,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
gentlemen. Gentlemen. Thank you very much. Mr. Bernstein, you know the way to the podium, so you're next.
I'm back.
You see that? Every time I think you're out, pull us back.
Back again. Barry Bernstein on behalf of the applicant BMV Enterprises LLC. And I'm here this evening for an application to convert attic space to my two-bedroom apartment, which is on the second story of 145 Main Street in West Hampton Beach. And since I came to the planning board the last time, I've appeared before the zoning board of appeals and have received a variance for 2 parking spaces, and also concerning the size of the apartment. And I've also appeared before the trustees, and I've received a special exception from the trustees. Building permit application has already been submitted to the building department, and we received some helpful comments, and I believe responded to those comments. And I've also submitted an application to the permit office of the health department, and I've spoken to that department a number of times, and I'm pursuing that application for approval from the health department.
As best I understand it, there's no change to the exterior, you're just building an apartment.
Correct.
And since the ZBA, I mean, obviously the main issue always was gonna be parking, because it was parking when you came to talk about however long ago that was.
That's right.
That still hasn't changed. I mean, without any exterior change, Brad?
So this application predates the requirement for the conditioning the health department approval. If the board wants to waive that, you have to formally waive it. Otherwise, he has to move to this.
Is he hooked into the sewer?
Yes.
So what effect, if any, does that have?
The only effect, I can't issue the permit without the health department. It used to be the board when you issue their approval.
Right.
That's not really, sorry. So if the board agree with it, you can.
We can write it into our decision as a condition or. Subject to.
Because there's actually no works to be constructed. The pipes are in the ground, he's
It's
connected.
already there.
And he's not providing, not changing any parking on the outside, so it's a good case for you to just make it subject to, because it's just stamping paper at this point.
Let's wave. Let's go.
Good, good, all right.
We're good.
You're catching us on a good day. You caught us an hour and 20 minutes in, so we're ready to go.
Warm down.
So, we need a motion? No, we just hold it over for determination.
Have the resolution of which won't be.
We'll hold it
We can-
for a resolution. Yeah, okay. We'll see you then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barry. She doesn't like. Barry, it's a rough crowd. I mean, thanks. That is, oh boy.
Barry, don't.
All right, fill application, 9 Stacy Drive. Before you get started, gentlemen, Ron, Brad, how's the fill looking? How's Stacy Drive looking?
It's a tennis court, it was just.
Oh, all right.
So they went before the zoning board. Tennis courts have to come to this board. Those requirements. There's drainage provided. I don't know if Ron got it for this.
Well, now your turn.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brad,
Can you just announce yourself?
sorry, Paulina Gianpietro, 200 Robbins Lane with Richard W. Rosenberg, PC.
Paulina, sorry, what was your last name?
Gian Pietro, Giampietro.
Yeah.
Richard W. Rosenberg, PC.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm representing the applicant, Lee Dub. The premise is 9 Stacy Drive, Section 10, Block 5, Lot 30. And it's on the Suffolk County tax map, and it's zoned R1. The premises is currently improved with a single-family home, a deck, a pool, and a boardwalk. Like Brad explained, we're here for a tennis court. We had to go to the BZA for the structure to be placed in the front yard. This is the still water area of West Hampton Beach, and it's typical for a tennis court to be placed in the front yard of that neighborhood. The tennis court would be 55 feet by 110 feet, which is slightly smaller than a typical court, and we're under the 7,200 foot maximum square footage underneath the code, so we're at 6,050. Lot coverage also would be remained under the code. It's 25% maximum total, and now with the tennis court, it would be 22.04%. Setback lines, and the front yard setback would be 27 and a half. It was required to be, I believe, 20, and same thing, the setback to the west will be 20 feet, which is the requirement. We also have a 6-foot fence around the court, landscaping and screening in the front along the front of the road. And there are existing landscaping going down the western property line. In addition, there is a retaining wall that will be placed on the south side of the line of the court to allow the court to be set to grade, because it slopes up a little bit, so the property slopes up as you head south. So it'll allow that property or that court to come to grade with the front of the property. We did go to BZA October 19th. We're awaiting their decision, which we expect on November 17th. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Just think, Ron, you just said you have to take a look at it?
I just did. It's pretty straightforward. It should be fine. I would just suggest the normal covenants and restrictions we do for a fill, that if there's any problems.
You do the conditions based on the drainage.
Yeah.
And the landscaping's adequate? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hearing no objection, we'll see you on December 14th for a resolution.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
evening. Mr. Hume, you back? 7 Beach Lane? I was saying with regard to this particular application.
For the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. So we're here for a modification of a site plan that was provided by this board some time ago for the reconstruction of the inn at 7 Beach Lane. As submitted, basically the plan as originally permitted had a sump all the way across the back of the property. And our modification is to reduce the size of that sump area and return that part of the property just to lawn. I believe it still meets all of the drainage restrictions, and we're not asking permission to do anything formal in that area other than just maintain a lawn, which would look better from the perspective of the hotel guests.
You don't think we need more sumps?
We have more than enough.
Ron?
It's fine drainage wise. It's a little bit different than what we've seen. It's down 2 feet. It's not a huge sump. It's a small sump. I'm not sure how you're gonna mow it or what, landscaping may be a little bit important, but wouldn't work that out.
That's what I was thinking, the landscaping was gonna be.
Yeah. I was a little concerned with how they were gonna use the space they freed up, but we're just proposing a new one, it's kind of it's kind of too small a space to do anything with. You know, that would attract noise or anything else.
It's gonna be maintained, right?
Yeah, they're gonna cut the lawn, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did did the original landscaping plan have? What did it have to say about back there?
I think there was landscaping in the back corner. I don't think that this impacts, I don't think that impacts this.
It was
This impacts-
basically a larger depression, but the depression was less significant. I think it was down about a foot. It covered a bigger area, and now they kind of squeezed it into one area. It's gotten deeper.
The volume is the same, the size of the
Volume
pool
is
is
the same.
smaller. Got it.
And it's now proposed to be tucked behind the pool. But the landscape plan that was submitted with the original site plan was not, didn't really have anything to do with this area. It had to do with screening this property from the adjacent property. And that aspect isn't changed.
The old plan, probably, it would have all been grass. But depressed.
I would think you might want to look at what one of the people coming out of the pool might do. Fall down into 2 feet. From a liability perspective.
Right.
I would be concerned.
Oh, we just won't put a gate on that side of the pool. So.
There's no other issues I can see, right? We're good? I would just say, let's hold you over. We'll make a motion to hold you over to determination on December 14th.
Great. Make a motion?
Second?
All right.
All in favor?
Aye. I reserved my thank you till after the motion, but
That's all
thank
right.
you anyway.
You thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You as well. See you in December.
And we come to SKL Realty Holdings Incorporated, Daphne's 115 Main Street.
Hello, this is Stephen Caro, managing partner at Daphne's and Caffeine Cafe. Caro, Carro. I was here last meeting to review the vinyl enclosure in the front patio of the restaurant. I was asked to submit some more examples of what that might look like, and to ensure that it was completely temporary, which I submitted to Megan. She said that she was able to print that and give that out to the board, and you know, seek approval today, hopefully.
Yep. Well, I'll want to be first.
I'll let whoever wants to go first. I've been talking a lot.
I saw the drawings. I was looking for it now, but I probably left it downstairs. I really don't like the appearance.
Okay.
I think it looks like a hung tarp with a clear plastic sheeting on it. And its presentation is poor.
Did you look at the picture, I think it's TT's. It's the white. It looks almost like part of the front of the facade, and we specifically sourced one that does not look like a rolled up vinyl. So
What I saw looks like,
yeah, it's this one here, and then the front looks like that, which almost looks like glass.
this is,
It's the most, the closest you can get to look like the front of the facade that they have right now in like their inventory.
where does this exist now? Who has it?
It's
using it?
Serafina in East Village has something similar. TT's in Montauk, and the Montauk Beach House also uses something similar as well. It's the white with mostly exposed or clear vinyl, it's almost like glass. It looks like glass.
Who's the closest here? You said a couple places in Montauk?
East Village, Serafina does it, and there's a restaurant in Jamesport too, but it's not done by the specific vendor that we sourced, so I didn't want to include it.
The pictures that I saw, I didn't like.
Those that you have.
Yeah, I haven't seen these.
Yeah, I know the last meeting, it wasn't really clear, those pictures, so I asked the vendor to the exact white with mostly translucent windows, which we're sourcing, to give us examples of that, which I submitted last week. So on the first page, that front, that house, that whole front facade is the actual And I don't know if you would agree or disagree, but it almost looks like it's glass. It doesn't, I believe the appearance looks nice. And for us, it's important, the aesthetic as well for the restaurant, so.
Well, you know, another issue is you may not be the only one that wants to do this.
I understand that.
This doesn't, and if this looks poor, all right, we've just cut our legs off.
I understand that. What I will say is that we're the only restaurant that this front patio is also under the structure of the building, and it's raised 5 feet off the ground. So it's not sidewalk seating. It's a patio that's almost part of the building. So we're literally just enclosing that with something that's as aesthetically pleasing as possible that we've seen in other restaurants. And again, we're using a
How would you work your door?
so they actually install a door on the side, like when it's hard to. So when you walk up the stairs, there would be a door there, so you'd be able to access the
And it
patio.
would be vinyl also.
Correct. It would be the hard vinyl.
stuff.
Yeah.
What about like actual panels, built panels?
Panels, actual glass panels.
Yeah, like, you know,
So when I was here last week, I think that there was concern from the board that you did not want anything that was non-temporary. So I
I
tried.
mean, it gets removed
Yeah.
in the springtime. They click in at
Yeah.
certain times a year and it gets removed.
Yeah. So the clear is it's like a hard vinyl, so it's almost represents glass. And
Brad, just how is this, I'm just trying to figure out how this interacts with the seasonal seating. Because if this is something that's, I mean, when are you planning on using this?
December, January, February.
Which is after seasonal seating.
So we applied for an extension of the seasonal seating with this enclosure.
I mean, to be perfectly frank with you, it sounds to me like you just want to expand the size of your dining area year round, in which case then expand the building, put in a more permanent enclosure, perhaps with the ability to open up the sides, like with the panels, you know, like you
Panels,
said, so
yeah,
we're gonna
remove
have
the
that summer feel. But I don't like temporary structures as a general proposition, so let's not pick it on you, it's just I don't like them.
Are you familiar with Barry's building on the corner?
I am. Hey, Barry.
Now, I don't know if it works to have a sliding panel system.
Have a sliding glass panel
Well,
system.
just, you know something, we're not here to design your project. It's just, I'm just throwing a
Suggestion. I think what we're concerned about, I know what I'm concerned about is we don't want it to look temporary. And I think if you want to, I mean, it really sounds to me, you're not looking, it's not like you're saying, I got my seasonal seating. When it's raining, I want to be able to drop sides so people
It's
get wet.
cold. Yeah.
When it gets cold, but then you're expanding, seasonal seating ends in November. So if you're looking to go into the winter months, you're really winterizing effectively an outside space. So at that point, to me, if that's your intention, which is fine, I think you would have to make a permanent expansion and to enclose that that patio area. Because once, and again, nothing against anybody, but once somebody sees this, then somebody a little bit further down Main Street's gonna say, all right, I wanna drop a canopy off the fascia of my thing. I wanna enclose my outdoor seating that I have to serve pizza or to serve bagels or to serve whatever. And the next thing you know, we have vinyl going down. And I know you can make, but it's still not going to look like a permanent expansion. And I just don't think that's a way we want to go. The way Barry's works, I was actually surprised because when we approved it, I wasn't sure how it was going to work. It worked better than I expected.
Yeah.
And you still have you have the outdoors seating in the back.
We have the patio in the back.
But it opens up and it takes effectively a fully winterized enclosed area and makes it an open air summer area. So you can do it without having to do it halfway.
Okay.
Plus you gotta heat it.
Yeah, we have heaters. We have we have. Well, that's a different issue with an electrical concern, but we do have heaters. What I will say is this: is that I think that in contrast to the other restaurants on Main Street, once again, like this does not get in the way of snow removal whatsoever. So we're raised off of the sidewalk, and again, I would have sourced a different structure, but the feedback that I got last week, that it needs to be temporary. It's important that could be removed and installed quickly. So
True, but if you're telling us that you effectively want to turn that outdoor space into a year-round permanent food service area, that's different than a couple of months out of the year wanting some weatherproofing, and even at that, I'd have a hard time with it. I mean, what they do down at Fauna with the drop-down signs, I think it looks horrific.
this
But
looks nothing like that. I
I
just want to make
understand
sure,
that, but I'm
yeah.
saying, but that's, then you get into like, well, this is I don't want to get into parsing what's good versus what's
Yeah.
not good. I think we need a more or less a bright line approach here, saying this, if you want to do a full year, terrific. But you're gonna, and for my mind, I think you're gonna have to make it a permanent expansion of the building.
Okay, I thought I want to leave it just one more sentiment. I understand, listen, Fauna has, 200 seats in the restaurant. For us, we have 40 seats in the restaurant, and I think that many other restaurants they close in the off season. Our intent is not to, I know you hear this probably all the time. Our intent is not to close in the off season, but if we don't, all the money is made on Friday and Saturday nights, and like we can't get a table, we are on a wait list on Friday, Saturday nights, and if we can't maximize on those evenings, we can't stay open for the off season.
And I didn't mean Fauna, I spoke correctly. It's, I can't, the name of the restaurant, next to Walgreens. Right across the street. Fauna.
Right.
Yeah, Flora, they have that, they have that drop down, that's right on the circle. It looks hideous. It just looks hideous. But, you learn lessons when you screw things up.
Brad, you got something?
Well, I mean, yeah, temporary is defined, all right? It's 180 days or less, and 6 months out of the year. And the trustees have granted this 6-month thing that then they extended, which is problematic. To take a temporary, because the original site plan approval for this board approves a patio space. That's it. There's no guarantee of seating on that, using it, whatever. The only way they're granted to use it is the annual from the trustees. So then to come back for this board and look for a temporary seasonal thing for the off-season, it's like, I think what you said is prescient. It's not a seasonal temporary thing. This is now year-round, which could be viewed as expansion of a building.
I'm looking at this photograph and what I see is what I saw in some of the others. It's this ripple deflect on the plastic, and it makes it look like, that this is the look that we don't want.
Mhm.
Have you investigated removable panels that could be put up?
I can. I mean, I didn't because of, again, it's not about spilled milk, but the last time I was here, we want to make sure it was as temporary as possible. So I can explore something where it's a harder plastic or as
So-
close as possible to glass, but it would be temporary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not opposed to you trying to close it in. What does it look like when you're done?
Well,
And
that-
that's the problem.
Well, that's true, but not true. The problem is, it's like, we're still trying to square what is a seasonal
Well, that's a whole nother discussion.
but that's going to dictate
What he
where
does.
he goes, because if we're saying he can't, his season ends in November, and the whole point of doing this is to be open for those 3 or 4
the year.
months.
Yeah.
Then we're sort of spinning our wheels here, because then it becomes effectively a permanent year-round expansion of the dining space. Right now, it is a patio, which upon application to the trustee, you can put outdoor seating, and you don't have an entitlement to that. That's not in your site plan anywhere.
Right. You can apply or ask for it, right? Ask for an extension essentially, which
You
is
can
what,
ask for it, but I think, like, and Brad, mentioned, there are things like, there comes a point where you can't keep extending it. You have to kind of decide, this is when it ends, and we call it a day, and that's the trustee's call. But from a planning perspective, I don't know how you plan that, because it's so uncertain.
There's really nothing temporary when it comes to planning. That's
Right, it has to be, what we do is we effectively talk about more or less permanent alterations to properties and structures that are gonna be there for a long time. That's why we don't even deal with the outdoor music and seating anymore, because that really shouldn't, probably never have been in our basket of tricks anyways.
I hate to confuse it even more.
Sure.
Site plans we approve have a certain amount amount of parking that are required based on square footage, seating, whatever. Converting it to year round, it doesn't have the adequate parking. Well, it doesn't, frankly, unless seating has been extinguished inside, matching the parking, the seating you're putting outside, you're kind of violating the site plan to begin with.
Yep.
Now, the trustees have been doing that, but
For me, that's very confusing.
I'd actually rather see him expand.
I
it.
mean, yeah,
It's an issue.
exactly.
And you have seating in the back anyways that you're.
I'm not using it.
That
It's-
you don't use during the
can't.
winter anyways, that's being
I can't use that in the, it's totally exposed.
totally exposed, but that's
yeah,
gone.
it's gone.
So, you know, how many tables are out there?
I'm not using those at all. It's just storage right now. And, it's just because there's no roof on that. I mean, the front patio, again, I don't want to be redundant, but it's literally underneath the building. So I'm just proposing to do panels where that railing is. And then, yes, on the side is where you'll see the door, but you won't see it from Main Street. Like the idea is to make that as aesthetically pleasing as possible where the front of the building is, which again, like I try to source something that is as temporary, but looks as permanent as possible, based on the last meeting. And again, I understand the parking, but we're in off season now where, I don't know why that's applicable versus getting the seasonal seating in season.
Well, parking,
Theoretically, I think there's
From what I read,
you have adequate parking here, you don't have adequate parking based on what you have. The trustees have granted a seasonal variance, but
from what I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be, and I apologize, but if it's not does it obstruct snow removal? And you can apply to extend your seasonal seating, like that's in the code. So
To December.
to December only.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it said that. I thought it gives it a couple. It's like a time frame.
well, the upshot is, I mean, it's seasonal for a reason. If it becomes something that you can get a never-ending extension on, then it no longer is seasonal. And if the ultimate goal here is, and that if, whatever your goal is fine, but if
My
your
ultimate goal is to do what you said, is to actually, but that
But open year
requires
round.
me, well, that's number one, because if I don't get the extra 20 seats with the 40-seat restaurant, it's not possible. It's just not. And I'm not,
But you do appreciate that you were never entitled to those 20
Yes.
seats in the first place.
I do.
So and listen, you do what you can, but effectively what you're trying to do is double your seat load on a seasonal thing and just try to, keep applying to extend it and extend it, and extend it, which really is a huge end run around the planning process. Because it gets you something that you would not otherwise be able to do under normal circumstances.
our long-term goal is to make that seating fully part of the restaurant, but we needed to go through the health department to do that, which we did, by the way. We actually have approval to increase our amount of seats because we're connected to the sewer.
Yeah. and that's-
However,
That's great,
yeah.
but so from the next step from there would be to, if you want to expand your operation, subject to the obvious parking problems, which are never ending because we have what we have. If you want to make this a permanent, if you want to turn it from a 20-seat restaurant into a 40-seat restaurant, then you have to expand the restaurant if you can. There's no halfways about this. There's no way to half-ass it. We can't say, well, we want to give you a chance to get going. We want all the businesses to succeed, but then, as we saw this summer, there are certain businesses in this town that are gonna, do what they want.
Sanitary flow is not unlimited. We are capped. And we don't just give it out to the first 3 applicants who take it.
Understood.
So I think you have to really focus on, again, if your ultimate goal is to double your seat load on a permanent basis using that front patio, I'm not sure that there's a path to that.
Well, the village is has engaged in a parking study to look at providing to alleviating some of the parking requirements specifically for eateries, and I think we're kind of waiting. That has to be finalized and discussed and see if it affects, see what it affects.
Again, I'm a little, I hope you understand, taken aback because our last meeting was just, okay, aesthetically, show us what it looks like and we're okay with it. You know,
Well,
that's the feedback that I got.
We weren't okay with it. We
Or
wanted
make
to see
sure
what
that it was
looked like,
temporary.
Because I had my reservations about what it was gonna look like.
See, I think the problem in just the temporary discussion was just the temporary nature of the structure itself, that it could be dismantled or reassembled relatively easily. The discussion, as my recollection, did not concern you turning this temporary area into a doubling of the size of your restaurant. That's a different discussion. You were looking to double the size of your restaurant on a permanent year-round basis, which is fine. But I don't know that you can do that.
But I'm looking to extend the seasonal seating because
I think there's
I,
a loss here. You understand that a restaurant seat. Space.
yes.
Trustee permit sort of
Or
just acknowledge that because it's a temporary basis. It's 6 months or whatever it is. So your regular restaurant seating has a certain parking limitation and a certain septic flow limitation. Once you go outside of that temporary permit, you're now subject to a much more stringent requirement. So you have to provide parking spaces or buy parking spaces. You have to increase your septic flow or apply to the health department. So this board doesn't have the ability to look at anything that's not a permanent solution for additional restaurant seats that carry with it parking and septic flow.
So ultimately, I mean, I guess based the way the code's written right now, you can extend or seek an extension of your operations until December. But that's still at that point, but then this would have to come down. December, the whole thing has to come down, the patio has to be empty.
Subject to whatever the trustees would say.
I'm just
Whatever
saying,
that time.
as we talk about right now. I mean, they can't go
Board only looks at
permanent changes, and
temporary changes are through the trustees. So I think it was confused because you came with a kind of temporary situation and didn't understand that the trustees can only extend you another month. So this is not the board to ask that. If this board only looks at permanent solutions, you need to look at the bigger picture, which includes septic flow and parking.
The trustees can't approve this plastic thing either. It's not within their purview. That's a change to the building, so it's kind of like.
well, the catch-22 we're in is again, the proposal, as I understand it, your intention is to turn this into a doubling of the size of your restaurant on a year-round basis. That makes it a complete site plan change, and I think you have to have, at a minimum, a hard structure with, I mean, the removable panels,
Removable
maybe, I'm not
panels,
sure how
yeah.
that works architecturally, but then
Yeah.
these have to be fully architecturally plans, and then there's sprinkler issues and.
Well, building code requires that an architect design this anyway based on this type of building, but.
And now we're adding and now you're saying that the actual egress from the property will not be the door, but will now be a vinyl door. So we're a different means of egress, which.
No, I think the main door would still stay. The main
Yeah, but he said from that enclosure, there's another vinyl door or vinyl-ish door. So now we have another means of egress.
Well, we would be able to open, so we have the glass doors that are beyond the patio. We'd be able to open that to the structure. So people would be able to walk through to the main door as well.
Sure where that leaves us.
I'm probably much more confused than everybody.
Well, right. Yeah.
For me, it's a temporary extension of the outdoor seating I already have by enclosing it with a temporary
Which is
structure.
basically less than a month. I mean,
Next year, because well, we have to see when like I said, we have approval from waste flow or water flow from the health department that we can increase it, but then that goes into a whole nother conversation
What
about.
are you gonna do, Aaron? Now we'll sit here next year and we're in the same position. What are you proposing for next year?
Is to through changing the structure, the site plan of the building to get a full permanent structure there, as long as I meet the requirements that you discussed about parking.
So your
Sep-
plan is this is a one-shot deal?
Yeah, because I want to stay open a little bit longer in the season rather than close.
Brad, when does his,
So you're
when
saying.
when does his extension end?
I don't know that they made a application to extend with the trustees.
Because right now, your best case scenario to getting a decision out of us would be December 14th. So you're basically done at that point.
Yeah.
So my suggestion for you, you're not gonna get it this year. It's not in the cards. Maybe this is just an area in the code that's not quite, doesn't fit neatly. But I think Britton did actually summarize your options fairly, either you're gonna make it a permanent change, which requires a full site plan application
Yeah.
from our board, or you're gonna have to go the temporary route through the trustees. But then again, like Brad said, it's because he'd have to come back to us anyways with the materials, so I think you gotta give him. Well, I don't think anybody's in favor of what we have looking at right now.
January, if this board, the earliest this board can give him permission in January.
That's the same, but even if we agreed on whatever it is tonight, we're not gonna get a resolution to December 14th because we don't have a second meeting. So he's done. Unfortunately, you're done for the year. There's just no time way to give it to you that it makes sense for you to do for a week. So I guess the best thing is that you gotta go back, regroup, maybe consult with Brad in the building department, maybe the trustees, go talk to them and see.
I think like every eatery on Main Street, you're waiting for the parking study to see if that alleviates anything, because no one wants to be paying parking variances, and that's just the hard truth. This is.
Because even if you get something, even if we were inclined to do something along with a permanent expansion.
Yeah.
You're parking limited, you'd have to go to the ZBA, then you're into a whole other thing, so, I think maybe you just got a little bit more ambitious than you expect, and you ran into some more roadblocks, probably what usually seems simple.
No, it definitely did. From the last meeting, it seemed like a simple solution.
Yeah,
but
I think we were all kind of ferreting out these issues, like, because there are a lot of competing sort of like considerations here. It wasn't a straightforward site plan application where I want to expand my restaurant. It was like, but within the context of this, by extending this, and just got a little bit too many moving pieces. So, I think
I definitely like some guidance.
I think my suggestion would be sit with, if you can meet with Brad or whoever in Village Hall, and they can kind of maybe think through some of these, because some of these issues are overlapping jurisdiction too.
You gotta talk to the trustees or the mayors. Gotta figure out.
I want to come in, talk to the trustees, lay it out on the line for them.
The temporary seasonal seating is not going to be expanded. If anything, it's going to be truncated. We have to get these things in order.
So chances are, to do what you want to do, you're gonna have to come to us with a permanent proposal. But from what Brad seems to be saying,
Yeah, permanent is fine.
permanent,
Right now, you're
but right now your parking
looking
problem,
at parking.
we need to wait on the parking study, which could be, any ideas? One?
We should have discussions on it before the end of the year, I think.
So
Definitely discussions before.
So this may be all whacked out in the spring or in the winter time. So it's a dual track. I would work on what do I want to do with this? And then, work with the trustees to see, because if that, they may not solve your problem, but they may alleviate the problem.
Yeah.
Or the amount of hurdle that you have to go over.
I know I'm the last speaker, and I want to get everybody home. But what I will say is this: I agree with Barry that I also am a partner of Caffeine too. So obviously, when I see Starbucks coming in, it's not a comfortable feeling, right? So I've been working in the restaurant industry in New York City for 15 years. I moved out here because I wanted to get away from, after COVID. I'm one of those people, and the small boutique owned, individually operated is what drew me out here. And I hope that we can find ways. There's no restaurant association, so there's not one voice speaking for all the local restaurants, unfortunately. But I really think that we need to find a way to make some of these situations easier, because we can't compete with Starbucks. They have an unlimited bankroll to stay open if they have one customer. So for us, getting these type of extensions is pretty vital. And I'm sure you guys have all heard this before, but I just wanted to make sure that I voiced that as well.
We want the local businesses. It's what makes the town. There's nobody stopping or trying to stop that here. There are just certain things that we can and cannot do, certain ways. We can't go, one way for one person, one way for another, depending on what we do. There is a Chamber of Commerce, there is a vibrant business community, and the trustees are open to talking to them all the time. So those are the kind of things that require going to the trustees, who are the legislative making body of this village, and make your case. Maybe they can figure out a solution, and then they tell us what to do.
You know, what
And
I'm, go ahead.
Sorry. Magic's was tore down. They could have just built a restaurant building. That's not what they built. In fact, in fact, originally it was a 45 or 49 seat restaurant before this board that they shrunk down to add some more office use. And I know this is before you, but like, you have to appreciate, I met with restaurateurs who needed 65, 70 spaces. I said, sorry, guy, it's not in the cards. This is now a 39 seat restaurant with 8 stools. You have a very generous village that redid Main Street, gave you sewers, and gives you a lot of outdoor seatings, and it's just, we're not in a good spot with the health department with all this wild outdoor seating. And so it's just a little tough to tell a developer and tell an owner, no, 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 and it's just never enough. I need another couple months, another couple months, another couple months. Your CO is the only thing that entitles you to operate. Everything else is gravy. So just take that for what it's worth. Temporary is temporary. It's not 10 months, 12 months out of the year.
Even at that, the health department wasn't jumping up and down with the temporary either.
They're not happy with what we've been doing for the last 20 some odd years with this outdoor seating.
I mean, we got away with a lot of stuff after COVID, because it was the only way to keep the restaurants open. But
So it sounds like going this way, making it permanent is a good idea.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is a real good idea.
Yeah.
Because he just said they're trying to shrink this down, this whole outside seating. You know, it's just got out of control.
yeah, for my money, I mean, I really think the original intention was good, but it got to be too much. It was, everybody wants outdoor seating, and now, of course, sudden now we got what, 5 foot of sidewalk that have to, I mean, that's not a lot of sidewalk, which is supposed to be a walkable, village with retail. So, I mean, I wasn't crazy about the outdoor seating. That was just me. Some of it's good, but it's too much. I mean, a couple chairs here and there, a couple tables, that's one thing, but we got 16, 20 chairs out there now. It's
And the health department's dictating now.
Yep. So, yeah, listen, talk to the other business people in town. I mean, go to the trustees. They're there. That's what they're there for. And maybe they can help you figure out a way to square this circle.
Is an avenue for him to go to the trustees now and see if he gets some temporary relief for a couple of months?
He's already out his temporary relief, and like Brad's
Well,
saying, if anything,
I heard I understand 100%.
Brad's shrinking
But
it back.
as he had stated, it's a temporary, this is a one-shot deal. Like this winter.
But till when?
He said next year is permanent. This year is temporary.
We're already on the road for
Am I
permanent.
correct that you're looking for you're looking for what, 3 months?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
3 more
know.
months.
I don't know, the trustees, maybe they would consider that.
With a prospect that it would be permanent in the future.
Well, that it would not be renewed, like if
Yeah,
if he
well, that's
got,
up to them.
if he got 3 months during the winter,
We-
this
yeah.
winter, you would not get it next winter.
That's understood. I mean, we took the first big step by getting the health department to approve through flow, despite what Brad said, I understand that we could go to a certain amount of seats with, but where that goes, I don't know.
I think you've run as far as you can with us.
Yeah.
For now. I would, again, see if you can get a meeting with some of the trustees. I don't think it has to be in a formal, public hearing. They could sit down in the conference room downstairs, hack out your problem. I mean, maybe there is a solution to
They
it,
can help you out.
but they're gonna have to be the ones that are gonna give it to you.
Yeah.
Not us.
Right. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Have a good night. I know we have some minutes, yes.
Make a motion?
All in favor? All right, we'll see you on December 14th. Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, thank you. 2 hours, 28